My name is Cyril Stover, and I stand before you to take you through this book presentation, identifying the items as we go. So may I start by acknowledging the one who chairs over this presentation and acknowledge his presence, one who is referred to as a father in both the political and social landscape of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. His Excellency Chief B.C. Akande, CFR. May we applaud him. I'm made to understand that the Right Honorable Speaker of the House of Representatives
Check mic, can you hear me?
is represented here by a member of Nigeria's House of Representatives, the Honorable Rahim Olawiya Julo, who's now based on to acknowledge your presence here. Let me also use that to acknowledge the presence here of all 7 members of the National Assembly present here. And while we are at it, may I also acknowledge that there was a number of those who held very distinguished positions in Nigeria's legislature, both in the past and who currently do hold such positions, are with us here. And I acknowledge you. Thank you for being here. May I also acknowledge the presence here of ministers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and please permit me to use the Honorable Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed, as a point to recognize the 7 ministers who are attending today's occasion. You would do understand that being here, even though we're used to this with all the lights in our eyes, it may be very difficult to start sending you all out at this moment. But let me say, using the Minister of Information, I do acknowledge your presence here. Ministers of the Federal Republic, let's give them a round of applause. Let us also acknowledge the fact that today's occasion is one that provides some challenge in terms of recognizing the who is who, as they say. But we'll try to do our best to acknowledge that within us here we have former governors, we have a former chief of staff to the late former President Muhammad Buhari, and in this case let me just acknowledge the presence here of Professor Ibrahim Gambari, former Chief of Staff, and as well as a former SGF, Mr. Boss Mustafa, whom I spotted a short while ago. But of course, if you look at the composition of this hall, it is evident that a Federal Executive Council meeting of the past administration could well be in progress here. Because if you look around, you find a huge population of former ministers of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. They're all here, and just as I mentioned, we have in our midst former governors as well, former governors who are also former ministers, and I think I've spotted quite a few of them. I may mention some names as I go on, and let me quickly acknowledge that yes, we said they would use the Minister of Information as a point of contact, but I do understand that sitting next to him is the Honorable Hannatu Musa Musawa, who is Minister of Culture and is with us here at this program. So I acknowledge your presence here. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, the very distinguished Nigerians who are here, former heads of MDAs, all here. Let me pay tribute to our royal fathers who are here. And start off with one who's the royal father of the day, His Eminence, Mohammed Saad Abubakar III, who's been represented at this occasion by His Royal Highness, the Emir of Kefi, Dr. Shehu Chindoya Musa III. Your Royal Highness, I do acknowledge your presence here. And I understand that also with us here is His Royal Highness, the Emir of Nasarawa, Alhaji Ibrahim Usman Jibril. Your Royal Highness, I also welcome you here. Let's put our hands together. If you noticed, I've been recognizing the array of invitees to this presentation. But perhaps at this point, let me acknowledge the one on whose account we are gathered here today. And he is no other than a former Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, who is the author of this book we're here to present. Let me acknowledge his presence here along with his spouse, his wife, and say thank you very much for gathering us together. Thank you so much. So we can have an insight into headlines and sound bites, media moments that defined an administration. Along with our royal fathers who are here with us are the emirs of Argungu and Karshi. And as we go on in today's program, we will single out the royal fathers amongst us. And because I do understand they have specific roles to perform here as we present this book and acknowledge their presence. So, Your Royal Highnesses, thank you once again, and we do welcome you. And while we're at it, may I also acknowledge the keynote speaker, the book reviewer, and all the very distinguished members of the Nigerian state, citizens who have come here to be part of this historic presentation. As we go on, there would be a list of very important dignitaries who we must acknowledge at today's occasion because of their positions in society and because they have to do with this book presentation. Among them, of course, would be the chief launchers. If you notice, I said chief launchers. That's in plural. Because there are launchers, there are chief launchers. Chief launchers are also launchers, but they all are, as they say, first among equals. And so we would acknowledge them at the appropriate time as we go on. But I'd not like to take a lot of your time because I do believe that when people come up here to speak, they would again go down the path of recognizing all the various dignitaries who are here. And so for us to save the time, we will go into the very first item on today's program while we keep an eye on the guest lists and those who deserve to be acknowledged here. And respectfully invite our father, the chairman of today's book presentation, His Excellency Chief B.C. Akondi, CFR, to formally welcome you to this book presentation. Let's put our hands together as we welcome you. Thank you very much.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have been individually recognized, and I don't think I should have to start doing that all over again, but I must recognize the members of the National Assembly here present, the ministers, the royal fathers. I have met so many distinguished members of this country, since I came, have shaken hands, and I'm happy that all of us are here. It shows how complex and how simple Lai Mohammed is to what I can describe as the Nigerian question. He's been in it for some time. He has served in Lagos State and under the present president as the chief of staff when they were in Lagos. And he moved from there to try to serve in Kwara State. And after that, he starting with us in the Action Congress, in the Action Congress of Nigeria, and in the APC before he entered into the deluge of services under President Muhammad Buhari. In other words, our author and what I can call the object of today's ceremony had served great people, among great people in a great country of ours, which is Nigeria. I don't need to say how complex or how simple Nigeria is, and I don't need to say much about its leadership and those he has served under or with, or about himself, until we start reading this book. And I think the main purpose of our coming is to try to have a copy of this book, and when we want to be diligent with ourselves and about Nigeria, I recommend that we read this book. To all of you, I welcome you, and I say thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. May we give him another round of applause, Mr. Chairman. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, recall I did say to you that as we progress, we would, of course, acknowledge those who have a key role to play in today's book presentation. Let me let you into this. This book was written by Alhaji Lai Mohammed, former Minister of Information and Culture. And our chairman has described him as a simple yet complex man. He is one who, at the time he was Minister of Information, the designation then was Minister of Information and Culture, with many of the components of other ministries now being under that ministry. And it followed that culture was an integral and important aspect of his stewardship at that time. And we do know that the custodians of our traditions and culture are royalty, our royal fathers. And so it was that Minister Lai Mohammed at that time was made Kakakin Kebi. And the one who conferred that singular honor on him is here with us today. And let me now properly acknowledge his presence. His Royal Highness, the Emir of Argungu, Alhaji Samaila Mera, CON. Can we put our hands together for him? Thank you so very much. Earlier on, I did say that looking at the guest lists in this hall, it would seem like a fake meeting, a Federal Executive Council meeting of the Buhari administration is well underway. Perhaps acknowledging that the one who presided over such meetings at that time is no longer with us, the late President Muhammad Buhari. but his family are well represented here, and they also have an important part to play in today's event. The former First Lady, Haja Aisha Buhari, has been represented here by Halima Buhari, and among the members of the former First Family, Yusuf Buhari, Talman Daura, and so we acknowledge their presence here. We have amongst them other members who have come in support. We have Abubakar Ismaila Isa, Halima Buhari and her spouse, Babagana Sharif, all part of the train of the former First Family, Nana Hadiza Buhari. We have Dauda Musa Daura, also part of that train, and Musa Halilu. Let me say you're all very warmly welcome to this book presentation. We will, of course, acknowledge that also with us here are former heads of the armed forces who are here. Easily, we spotted the former Chief of Naval Staff, Admiral Gambo, who's with us here, and also among that distinguished group is a former National Security Advisor, General Babagana Munguno. So as we go on, we will continue to acknowledge all those who have a role to play at this book presentation. Yes, among that train, of course, former presidential spokespersons in the hall too. A while ago, I was with Mr. Femi Adesina, and if you, of course, you know that his double has been making the short trips back and forth to me here. Garba Shehu is with us here. And another former presidential spokesperson, Mr. Shegun Adeniyi, who is chairman of this day editorial board. And it's him I now invite as the book reviewer to step up and review this book, Headlines and Soundbites, Media Moments That Defined an Administration. Let's welcome Mr. Shegun Adeniyi to the microphone as he reviews this book. And as I speak, let me welcome to this gathering His Excellency, the Governor of Oyo State, Governor Sheyi Makinde. We acknowledge your presence and we welcome you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, our royal fathers, eminent politicians. I mean, this is a very big gathering that I don't even know where to start. But it reminds me of a story. A top politician had been at work all day, and he just got home. And he sat down, then the son came and gave him a paper. He looked at the paper. English language, 90%. Mathematics, 14%. Literature, 13%. And he just saw. So he became very angry. All the money I'm spending on you, this boy, you're just wasting money. You don't go to class. All you do is watch television. And the mom was calming, the wife was calming him down. Okay, calm down. He said, no, why should I calm down? You are the one spoiling him. And then on he went. And after some time, the boy said, Dad, I'm sorry for making you angry. When I was cleaning your room, I found this result, 1970. Your result in class 3. Then the man became humbled. After some time, he said, in those days, food was scarce. With a first degree in French, before going on to read law, Alhaji Lai Mohammed is one of a few members of the Nigerian political elite with a second address. Before politics and government, he was an established lawyer, a respected media practitioner, and a public relations guru. And after he left government, Alhaji Lai Mohammed refused to hang around. He went back to private practice by joining Ballard Partners, a global government relations firm, as managing partner for Africa, focusing on public relations and public policy. On a personal note, I have known Alhaji Lai Mohammed since the beginning of the Fourth Republic, when he served as Chief of Staff to the then Governor of Lagos State, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, who is now our president. And I know he must remember one encounter he had with me and Waziri Adio, then in my capacity as editor of this day. Maybe one day you will recall it. Alhaji Lai also happens to be one of the respected elders from my state, Kwara. Although we had no close personal relationships, when he came to my office to ask if I would accept to be the reviewer of this book, I had no choice in the matter. I actually considered it an honor. Thank you very much, sir. In the opening pages of Headlines and Soundbites, media moments that defined an administration, Alhaji Lai Mohammed made an important declaration. He said, he is a strong advocate of Africans telling their own stories from their own perspectives. This commitment to indigenous narration is admirable and necessary. However, as I walk through his 584-page chronicle of his nearly 8-year tenure as Nigeria's Minister of Information and Culture under the late Buhari, who would have been 83 today had he been alive, I was reminded that telling one's own story is not the same as telling the old story, and that perspective, no matter how privileged, is not synonymous with objectivity. This book, Headlines and Soundbites, media moments that defined an administration, is many things at once. Historical document, policy defense, and occasionally an extended rebuttal to both the critics of the Buhari administration and Alhaji Lai Mohammed himself. The structure is ambitious, covering everything from town hall meetings and media tours to the controversial Twitter suspension and the NSAS protest. What emerges is a portrait of a minister who saw himself not merely as a government spokesperson, but as a strategic communicator tasked with changing the narrative, a phrase that appears repeatedly throughout the text and perhaps reveals more about the administration's approach to information management than the author intended. There is undeniable value in the insider account provided by the former minister. His chapters on the government's communication strategy during the COVID-19 pandemic and the protracted P&ID legal battle offer useful insights into crisis management at the highest levels. The detailed documentation of media tours to territories either controlled by Boko Haram and the account of Nigeria's digital switchover provide important context that was often missing from real-time reporting. Of course, the minister was meticulously careful in choosing what to highlight and what to hold back. Alhaji Lai Mohammed is at his best when he abandons the defensive posture and simply describes the mechanics of government communication. His explanation of the stakeholder engagement process, the rationale behind town hall meetings, and the cultural diplomacy embedded in hosting international conferences are genuinely informative. These sections will prove valuable to students of public administration and political communication. The stories are told with the methodical thoroughness of someone who understands that history will judge its stewardship in government long after the news cycle has moved on. The chapter on Nigeria's fight to repatriate stolen artifacts, including the Benin bronzes, is particularly compelling. Here, Alhaji Lai's passion transcends his portfolio, and one senses a minister genuinely engaged with assets, issues of cultural identity, and historical justice. Similarly, his account of the National Theatre's restoration hints at what might have been achieved. If the ministry had focused less on crisis management and more on the substantive cultural mandate. But it is in Alhaji Lai Mohammed's treatment of the most controversial episodes of his tenure that the book both fascinates and frustrates. The Twitter suspension, which he insists was misunderstood, receives extensive treatment. It provides the government's rationale, documents the negotiations that preceded the platform's restoration, and argues that the concerns by the Buhari administration about social media regulation were legitimate. Unfortunately, the chapter reads less like historical documentation and more like a legal brief. Comprehensive, certainly, but selective in its engagement with opposing viewpoints. The confrontation with CNN over its NSAS coverage is similarly presented as a victory for truth over skilled and purely sourced reporting. As a journalist, I disagree with this submission. Alhaji Lai may well have legitimate grievances about the international media's coverage of Nigerian events. However, the righteousness with which it dismisses CNN journalism sits uncomfortably alongside its own acknowledgement that government communication must be tempered by transparency, a phrase he uses in reference to the Bring Back Our Girls campaign. This brings us to another troubling aspect of the book, chapter 14, titled NSAS, a Massacre Without Bodies. That title alone demands scrutiny. Alhaji Lai devotes an entire chapter to arguing against what he characterizes as the myth of a massacre at Lekki Toll Gate on 20th October 2020. He may believe he's correcting the record, but the framing, a massacre without bodies, ignores the grief of families who lost loved ones during those protests, regardless of the specific number or precise circumstances. The judicial panel of inquiry set up by the Lagos State government documented deaths and injuries. To reduce this complex tragedy to a semantic argument about the definition of massacre is to miss the forest for the trees. As the late Delegiwa reminded us, one life taken in cold blood is as gruesome as millions lost the program. Right from the introduction, Alhaji Lai Mohammed acknowledges that one motivation for writing the books was to dispel a number of misconceptions. This is a worthy goal, but throughout the book, there's a troubling conflation between misconceptions and disagreements. When Nigerians questioned the government's response to NSAS, were they all perpetuating falsehoods? When Nigeria questions Twitter suspension, were they all simply misinformed? When journalists challenge official narratives about security operations, were they invariably biased? To be fair, Alhaji Lai Mohammed does not shy away from documenting the challenges he faced. He acknowledges operating in a difficult environment, dealing with an opposition determined to undermine the administration, and managing a president who was often reluctant to engage with the media. Given my own experience in another life, I can understand these challenges and I sympathize with him. But my concern is that there is little self-criticism in this narrative, which put the blame on others. There is also little willingness to concede that some of the administration's communication failures were self-inflicted. In his tribute to Buhari, chapter 1, Alhaji Lai described the late president as a friend, mentor, and boss. And throughout the book, this loyalty to the administration itself is on full display. This loyalty is admirable in its consistency, but it also limits the utility of the book as a historical document. Therefore, while future researchers will find valuable raw materials here, press statements, timelines, policy documents, they will need to triangulate Alhaji Lai Mohammed's account with other sources to arrive at a fuller picture. Chapter 9, titled Before the Ballot, Inside Buhari Administration Scorecard Strategy, according to the author, was necessitated by the need to counter the narrative of the opposition before the 2023 general election with a media offensive that featured prominent officials. One of them is Abubakar Malami, ACN, who was then the Attorney General and Justice Minister. No fewer than 16 quotes of Malami, splashed over 8 pages, are featured in the book, where he highlighted the achievements of the Buhari administration, especially in the fight against corruption. One of the quotes from Malami reads, "The FCC will only succeed in securing 103 convictions before the advent of the current administration. However, with the implementation of the National Anti-Corruption Strategy, the EFCC has secured about 3,000 convictions." The last time I heard from Malami, who was writing an epistle from EFCC detention, throwing the same allegation that those about 3,000 people, convicted people, under the Buhari administration he served, were also thrown at the time. A case of whatever goes around comes around. Before I take my seat, let me commend Alhaji Mohammed for this book. Headlines and Soundbites is an important book, though not always in the ways its author intended. It is important because insider accounts matter, especially for someone who occupied a critical position for as long as Alhaji Lai did. It is important because it documents in granular detail the mechanics of government communication in 21st century Nigeria. And it is important because it reveals, perhaps inadvertently, the deep disconnect between the Buhari administration's self-image and its public perception. Alhaji Lai writes that he believes this account will form part of Nigeria's contemporary history, at least from my vantage point. I'm quoting him. He is right, but vantage points, by definition, offer limited views. They show us what was visible from a particular position at a particular time, but they also hide what lay beyond the sightline. Let me also express a personal disappointment. As the founding National Public Secretary of the APC, whose candidate, the late Muhammad Buhari, went on to defeat then incumbent President Goodluck Jonathan, Alhaji Lai Mohammed played a crucial role in the months leading to that election in 2015. But there is nothing about that episode in this book. There is also no reflection to contrast the role of a government critic, which he was under Jonathan, an information manager that he became under Buhari. It will have been helpful at the author giving us a peep into whether the view of the road remains the same after moving from the passenger side to the driver's seat. That, for me, is where the narrative should have started. But while this book is not what I was expecting, it is nonetheless still an interesting read. At the end, the book's greatest contribution may be unintentional. It provides an unvarnished look at how the Buhari administration saw itself and its critics. The worldview that emerges is one in which the government was perpetually misunderstood, consistently undermined by enemies both domestic and foreign, and forced to combat a relentless current of fake news and misinformation. There is some truth to this picture, since every government faces hostile coverage and unclear criticism. But the completeness with which Alhaji Lai Mohammed adopts this victim narrative suggests a troubling inability to distinguish between unfair attacks and legitimate criticism. However, whatever may be our misgivings about the Buhari administration, headlines and soundbites, media moments that define our administration, offers glimpses into what happened in that era. But this is Alhaji Lai Mohammed's story, told from his perspective. It deserves to be read and engaged with seriously, but it should not be mistaken for the definitive account of the Buhari administration relationship with the truth, transparency, and the Nigerian people. the story is being written. That story is still being written, and it will require many more perspectives, including from the journalist Alhaji Lai Mohammed sparred with, the activists he dismissed, and the ordinary Nigerian people who lived through those 8 years with rather different experiences than the one documented in these pages. To students of political communication, government and media strategy, and contemporary Nigerian history, Headline and Soundbites is a book I will strongly recommend. Just remember to read it critically with full awareness that in the contest between headlines and truth, between soundbites and substance, the former two often prevail during the years this book chronicled. Whether Alhaji Mohammed recognizes this irony is unclear. What is clear is that he has given us a comprehensive record of how power sees itself, and that alone makes the book worth the effort. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chegmadeni, the book reviewer. And from the side talks in the audience, quite a number would say a very unusual book review. Thank you so very much. Your Excellencies, let me just quickly acknowledge the presence here of the Right Honorable Abdurrahim Tunji Olawi, who's Chairman House Committee on North Central Development Commission and who's representing Ekiti Rekodun, Isi and Ukero Federal Constituency. We acknowledge your presence here. And let me just quickly state that among the former First Family who were here at this auspicious occasion, you've just been told that if the late president had been alive, today would have been his birthday. And so it's all the more significant that his Minister of Information and Culture has chosen this particular date to present this book to the public. And part of the former First Family is Safina Buhari, who's with us here. I do acknowledge your presence. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me also state that the chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Arewa Consultative Forum, Alhaji Bashir Alhatu Wazirin Dute, is also with us here, and we do acknowledge his presence. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, at this point in time, there is a short documentary which we're inviting you to sit back and watch. I understand this documentary would be no more than 14 minutes or thereabouts. And let me, at this point, ask if the technical crew are set. So, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, please sit back and enjoy this documentary.
The remains of Muhammad Buhari. There is no grand mausoleum or gigantic monument of marble to mark the final resting place of the former Nigerian military leader and highly revered democratic president, except for this modest grave marked by the simplicity that defined the man. He was a man of many parts. He was a son, a husband, and a father. He was also the soldier who became a democrat, a disciplinarian who empowered the ordinary people. And whether you loved him or otherwise, What is certain is that the legacy of Muhammadu Buhari can never be ignored. He was born on these grounds on December 17, 1942, at the Fulani settlement of Dumurkwal, in the outskirts of the famous Hausa city of Daura.
Tun da wancan ɗan gagarin da kake gani wancan ƙarami da wannan da wa'annan duk abubuwan da kake gani a kufan gidansu ne inda aka haifi mahaifin shi har ya rasu shi kan shi a nan aka haife shi.
Growing up in a world of Fulani tradition and colonial order, Muhammadu Buhari's education was a force of will and determination. It spanned the Quranic tutelage of his mother Zulaihatu to the colonial discipline of Government College Katsina, where he finished as head boy.
Somebody who commanded respect from his classmates and his teachers. He was even the head boy of the city when there he graduated.
At that level, education taught young Buhari that order, duty, and excellence were not mere topics in the classroom, but critical components of life.
Da ya gama karatu ko aikin kwana ɗaya bai ba, sai ya ce mini in zo in faɗi ma tsohuwanmu shi soja zai tafi. Na ce soja Buhari? Ya ce na ce aje a kashe ka, ya fi ni wayo. Sai ya ce ai ba wani abu za a yi mu a ofis za mu zama. Sai na zo na gaya wa tsohuwa ta ce to.
And so in 1961, the boy from Daura chose a path that would eventually thrust him into global limelight. He found his calling in the regimented lines of the Nigerian military. It was an institution that promised structure, duty, and a clear chain of command, attributes he embraced and nurtured through time.
The best you could describe him is to say that he is a proper trained soldier.
Right from the second lieutenant up to the time he rose to become a general, has really been a strict disciplinarian and accountable officer.
Rising steadily and meritoriously through the ranks of the Nigerian army, Buhari became the military governor of northeastern state, made up of today's entire northeast in 1975 at the young age of 33. He held that role before becoming Federal Commissioner for Petroleum in 1976 and later head of state in 1983.
However, the Nigerian people watched helplessly while over the succeeding 4-year period of the first term of the defunct administration, most of governments of the Federation failed to provide even the minimum of good government.
We knew there was insecurity, we knew there was corruption, we knew there was all sorts of vices within the society. Once we established that, then we begin to look for the man who is fit, who is capable to provide solutions to some of these problems. And at that time, Buhari fit in very well because he was a good soldier, quite honest.
Firm in principles and nationalistic in outlook, the Buhari Idiagbon regime gave Nigeria direction, with Africa as the centerpiece of its foreign policy.
The core is the defense of Nigeria's security, Nigeria's prosperity and welfare of its citizens. And then in relation to that, relationship with our immediate neighbors, and then with ECOWAS, and then with, of course, the continent as a whole and the rest of the world.
Ousted in a bloodless coup on August 27, 1985, Buhari returned to the land as a full-time farmer and pastoralist. But in the mid-90s, his acclaimed uprightness and integrity got him an invite back to public life to lead the Petroleum Trust Fund, PTF, set up by the Abuja regime. Devoid of uniform, yet armed with resources and a clear mandate, the PTF under Buhari built infrastructure with an efficiency Nigeria had never seen. It proved he could deliver development on a national scale with commitment and rectitude that became the cornerstone of his political parable.
Because if you don't do it,
Muhammadu Buhari's political journey was an exercise in stubborn endurance. He ran for election as president 3 times and lost. But with each failure, the legend about him intensified. Buhari became the idea and symbol of the Nigerian who could not be bought. In 2015, the idea won after the successful merger of opposition parties. Muhammadu Buhari became Nigerian president.
I, Muhammad Buhari, do solemnly swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
However, the newly inaugurated president inherited a nation in crisis. Insecurity had peaked with several communities in Nigeria already under the control of non-state actors. Corruption had embedded itself deeply in public governance and appeared to defy solution. On the economic front, the nation was on its knees struggling, arising from one of the worst ever global slumps in oil prices and government's financial mismanagement. 2015 was a perfect storm, and Buhari became the manager. As president, Buhari understood the imperatives for national security as the baseline for development. He began by moving the military command to the heart of the conflict in Maiduguri. And with increased funding and new equipment, the fight against insurgency and banditry gained momentum and urgency.
Alpha Syria, how do you read it?
The tide turned and the results were good. Suicide bombings in the cities stopped. A total of 14 local government areas were freed from Boko Haram's grip, pushing the infamous group into remote corners of Sambisa forest. On corruption, Muhammadu Buhari unleashed Nigeria's anti-graft agencies at full throttle. For the first time, the campaign was not just for those considered small fries, but many high-ranking public officials, including governors, legislators, and ministers, were investigated, tried, and some went to jail. Before long, everyone got the memo. Under Buhari, no one was above the law. His administration unveiled programs like the Anchor Borrowers Fund, which put money directly in the hands of 1.5 million smallholder farmers. He took the tough decision to close the borders, pushing Nigerians to eat what they grew. The result was an astonishing rise in local production capacity. The Buhari administration also built infrastructure across Nigeria like never before. Such projects like the second Niger Bridge, critical new highways and railways are legacy projects of President Buhari. Muhammadu Buhari also signed the historic Petroleum Industry Act to modernize Nigeria's oil and gas sector. His administration championed and funded the massive Ajaokuta-Kano-Kaduna AKK gas pipeline project. Managing an already ailing economy through unprecedented storms like the global COVID-19 pandemic, 2 economic recessions, and oil prices that literally collapsed was never going to be easy. But Buhari rose to the occasion. His administration created the monumental social safety net program. By the end of his 2 terms, over 1 trillion naira reached the poorest and most vulnerable through cash transfers, job programs for young people, and loans for traders. Through it all, Muhammadu Buhari's personal reputation for integrity rebuilt Nigeria's standing in the global community. Most leaders sought him out, not just for Nigeria's size, but for his word.
Buhari comes into office with a reputation for integrity and a very clear agenda.
One of the profound final political acts of Muhammadu Buhari was to ensure his party retained power in a fiercely contested 2023 election. And when it was time to leave, he handed over a nation that was, despite the many challenges, more secure, more self-sufficient in food, and imprinted with tangible markers of progress. He returned home to Daura a fulfilled man, at peace with himself and his environment, receiving stream of visitors, including former presidents, governors, and everyday Nigerians who came to pay their respects. But what he loved most was tending to his cattle and relaxing in the settee under his favorite shade spot. The amiable statesman also devoted more quality time to members of his loving family. After he moved to his long-term residence in Kaduna, President Muhammadu Buhari went to London for summer holiday and was even sighted in park alongside his daughter before he took ill seriously. Muhammadu Buhari died quietly in a private clinic in London. The news shook the nation's foundation. Nigeria's better-known symbol of change is no more. The iconic Muhammadu Buhari passed on at the age of 82. He was committed to Mother Earth amid full military honors at his favorite shade spot on Tuesday, July 15, in his ancestral town of Daura, Katsina State.
Made to honor a man whose presence once commanded his venue, whose voice once summoned the best in us, and whose conviction never doubt. Even the strongest winds of public opinion, President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, former head of state and former president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, has gone to rest.
In life, Muhammadu Buhari measured himself against his duty and commitment to serve the people. And in death, history continues to measure the distance and the impact of his time here on earth.
I belong to everybody and I belong to nobody.
Thank you so very much. Those famous words. I belong to everybody. I belong to nobody. Ladies and gentlemen, the short documentary on late former President Muhammadu Buhari. Let me just quickly take out a few moments and acknowledge that one who would be later on in today's program performing a role here is already with us, and that's acknowledging the presence of the Right Honourable Al-Hassan Ado Dogua, OON, Sedaunang Hausa, and Chairman Northern Regional Caucus of the House of Representatives, is with us here. And we did say we have chief launchers, and we decided to pluralize the matter of launching, and one of them, of course, has been here with us, Alhaji Nasru Halladu Danu, OFR, Sadaunan Dutse, and Tafida Babang Daura is with us here. And at the appropriate time, he will be performing a key role. Let me also acknowledge the presence here of the current presidential spokesperson, Mr. Bayo Nonuga, Presidential Advisor on Information and Strategy, is with us here. And again, quickly acknowledge with us here the Director General of the National Orientation Agency, Larry Issa Onilu, with us here. And also on that note, acknowledging that, as I said earlier on, you have former ministers, former governors, and some former governors were also former ministers, and some former ministers are now ambassadorial nominees, and among them is Chief Femi Fani-Kayode is with us here. And as we recognize his presence, let me also acknowledge the presence here of another ambassadorial nominee, Ayoke. Thanks. We acknowledge your presence here. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, next is the keynote address that will be presented by one who, at a point in time, presided over the civil service of the Federation. May I now invite to the podium Professor Oladapo Afolabi, the former head of the Civil Service of the Federation, who is our keynote speaker today. Let's put our hands together as he comes to the microphone. Thank you very much.
Sir, let me see the photo. The photo. Book lunch. A specific thing you wanted to know? No, just to be sure I don't take too much time. Good morning, joyous people of Nigeria. Of course, I can see that everybody is bright here today. I want to stand, as we say in Nigeria, on existing protocol, so that I don't elongate the list. But please, it is not out of disrespect, it's just to save time. And I see that one of these activities, which is mine, may be standing between the relaunching of the book and other events. So let me be very brief, maybe 5-10 minutes, I'll be out of here. I must recognize the author for this effort and also do me the honor of inviting me here to present a keynote address. When he invited me and gave me the title of his book, I said to myself that what else can we say about Nigeria when you already have the soundbites of a whole administration, and Nigeria's situation is a rolling cycle, so really nothing is new. I must say this, debatable, but I think really nothing is new. So I decided then to have a family table discussion, just any random topic, to remind ourselves of really what Nigeria is in perspective in the contemporary. And maybe we remind us, and then we also wake us up to be more aggressive about where we should be. I met the author when he was in a second life student at Ife. Great Ife, by the way, great Ife. He came in as a student, and I was that tiny lecturer at the university. And I said, what are you doing here? He said, no, I have my focus. I must do what I have to do.
And of course, really, yes, he was a student, but I had some inspiration from him that never say die. You just must continue pushing until you achieve all you have to do. And congratulations. Well, from that small little room in the boys' quarter, now we have the owner of mansions and one of the greatest names in Nigeria. But quickly to the topic which I decided to speak to, which is the Nigeria's unfulfilled global community expectations. Nigeria unfulfilled global community expectation. Why will I want to discuss this at this time? Is that seriously, Nigeria is at crossroads and is also at a point that it appears it has the least of respect. We must speak truth to each other. Despite all our efforts, we still are not commanding the respect that we deserve. So why don't we discuss why we are here, why we are at this spot, why are we not where the rest of the world expects us to be? So let's remind ourselves of our history and know clearly that where the disappointment is, and in the balance of Gen Zs, where we are falling our hand, is really that the rest of the world believes that we are not managing the resources in our hands well enough. This is my own analysis, that really is that we're endowed with all sorts of resources. About 924 square kilometer land, fertile, good climate, filled with all sorts of resources, and human beings that are very handsome and beautiful, well constructed. No dwarfs in Nigeria. We are all well constructed, intelligent people, yet. So this is what we need to remind ourselves on. How did we get here? Well, we know that in the days before the colonial masters, we were quite independent people, having our own ways of life, having our freedom. Of course, there are skirmishes here and there, and sometimes the stronger will conquer but it's largely autonomous societies. And then the Big Bang, the thunder, the colonial masters came and integrated us with intention that diversity is strength. But as the days go by, we find that we're emphasizing our differences and really not our commonness. So, confronted with this, many attempts were made. Many attempts were made, both at the global and at the internal level. Maybe I should just also remind myself of what I had yesterday from referred Ambassador Gambari when he was giving his lecture in Ibadan yesterday. He said that President Rawlings was a guest of Prime Minister John Major, and he was given 1 hour for the interaction. But 45 minutes of the discussion was on Nigeria, pleading with John Major that he should not allow Nigeria to disintegrate. That if Nigeria did, that there will be no Ghana, because the sheer size of Nigeria and where they go, where they spill over and all sorts of things means disaster for Ghana. And so the rest of the world also considers us like that. But so why should we not then hold that position strongly and without really wanting to impress the rest of the world, but manage our resources well in a way that will be admirable to the rest of the world? Attempts were made. We had 1960 independence, parliamentary system, just to have a governance arrangement that will manage the resources equitably to the benefit of all citizens. But then quickly we went into the Republican with also parliamentary arrangements, and then the military coup. And our story has not been the same since that time. Because before then, yes, we were fairly autonomous, and in the negotiation, the Lancaster House 1957-58 negotiation, we tried to negotiate these differentiated commonalities in a way that we could really be at our best. But then 1966 coup brought unitarization, and subsequent constitutions has found it very difficult to go back to a regime where healthy competitiveness was the watchword. So, and I can see the quest for constitutional reform all over and over. Those of us who are politicians and know better than me, I can see the direction. It's really to go back to that situation where we can have an arrangement where we will have healthy competition. Be yourself at your best in togetherness. So, really, you can see where this falling of hand is coming from. But then, it's not just all bad news, because Nigeria that I knew as a young guy, when I went to do sabbatical at the University of Zimbabwe, in those days the only university, you find Nigeria was a frontline state. Nigerians were there as foot soldiers, not even Nigerian soldiers, Nigerian civilians who are converted to be combatants. They were there. And resources of Nigeria were put in. So is the story of ECOMOG, story of Sudan, all over. We have that respect there. Let us build on that. In reconstructing ourselves, as said by the MC, this is some kind of reminder of a FEC, of a Federal Executive Council meeting, where strong decisions are taken. So these, you are the builders. We are the builders. We will construct the future. So where I'm pushing to is that briefly, we should identify what our issues really are, and then find a way to solve them. Notably, rule of law, bending of rule of law, and very weak institutions, extremely weak institutions, and the consequences of weak institution, which is anything goes. But the anything goes today, we more or less pick out and say is corruption. But if you really look at the root of all of this, corruption can be taken out with rule of law, strong institutions, and of course, strong morality. Today, you find that because we have weak institutions, because we have not so much bending of rule of law, immorality is rising. Then because resources are not so optimally managed, you find our youth unemployed, largely. And you know, youth, they are restless as a group of people. They must find employment for themselves. So comes Yahoo, so comes drugs, so all sorts of things. Of course, they are also very creative, so comes the entertainment world. But that's not really how to manage resources and optimize resources. So we need to tackle that. Rule of law, strong, and strong institutions. We also must address why we are losing faith in the instruments that could really put us together and believe in ourselves. And that is the election. Today is a major, we must tell the truth to each other. There's loss of faith in the process. As strongly as we try to make believe that really elections can be done properly, everything will be transparent, we still have a large part of our population who don't believe. That's an area we need to work strongly on. Those who don't believe must believe by doing what we think will make them believe. And that is, your vote counts. Let our vote count. Let's work strongly. Because really, the consequences of ignoring what we have now is anarchy. Nobody wants anarchy. Please, our elders, my contemporaries, those who are younger, let's work together to save Nigeria through a credible electoral system. We should not also, I know there will be a lot of discussions on what we should reform, what we should not reform, but there's one thing that sticks out strongly, and that is the outcome of elections that enables a winner-take-all outcome. Winner take all. No, we should say no to that. Let's reconstruct in a way that even when you have lost, you have a stake. When you have lost, okay, I will round up. Thank you. Way forward, let me just read that. Is that over the last decade and a half, our declining performances both at the foreign scene and the worsening internal situation have resulted in voices being raised at the disturbing level of elite delinquent behavior. It is believed in many quarters that most elites have contributed to Nigeria's decline and less than sterling performance at various levels, including involvement in the Hydra-headed problem of corruption. People are now asking whether Nigeria can be restored or improved. Nigeria's democracy, with the introduction of the presidential system of government, is too expensive. I think I'm giving you a minute more, so let me just go to my postscript. There is this pamphlet is available, so you can really please share it, and people can have a flip into this. So my postscript is that, one, President Trump's derogation of Nigeria is a wake-up call. Let's rise to the occasion, prove our worth, and not just be reactionary. Secondly, having practiced the present constitution for some years now, and having identified some defects in the constitution, constitutional amendment is long overdue. In the main, to decentralize some administrative arrangement, some aspects of security, resource control, embracing single tenure for executive elected offices. In the body, I explain why, but I think while you were in the university, we used to have 2 terms for vice chancellors. The vice chancellor will enjoy only 2 years. The remaining 6 years, if he got a second term, he was combating all sorts of manners of things. But if what you have, when we reduce ourselves to a 4-year single term, He has peace. You are coming only once, you will soon go. 4 years, you will go. I think if you have that kind of expectation, maybe this is one reason I'm just suggesting that eliminating winner takes all, as I said, and including opposition in government. Priorities of governance should include adherence to rule of law, good governance, and sustenance of strong institutions. And that we should know that the reality world is changing and dynamic. A people that will survive and be abreast must be dynamic, forward-looking, and adaptive. We must embrace all these attributes so that the world's moving train will not leave Nigeria behind. We must confront the challenges in reality. We must be sincere with ourselves. So help us God. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Oladapo Afolabi, who was a keynote speaker at this occasion. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give him another warm round of applause. Thank you so very much. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you would agree with me that the day is running fast and there'd be need for us to keep a strict eye on the time, and therefore you would please excuse my speeding things up a little bit. And please do understand if we have to skip a few things here. I do have a very long list here. I did say at the start that if we were to start mentioning all those who are in this hall today, we probably would be here by the end of tomorrow's work day, and there would still be more who would come in. So for those who we are yet to recognize, I sincerely apologize. We do appreciate your presence here. Every so often we will slip in an acknowledgement as we can. But we need to move ahead because we have a number of people who need to play particular roles here this morning. Well, it's gone a little bit afternoon. And so let me at this point move on to a few of our dignitaries who would be making very brief remarks here on this presentation, and would like to appeal to them, for those we can appeal to keep such comments and remarks short, straight to the point, and as we say in broadcasting, keep it short and simple. Kiss. And we would start off, ladies and gentlemen, let me at this point invite His Excellency Governor Sheyi Makinde of Oyo State to make some brief remarks here at this occasion. Let's put our hands together as His Excellency comes on. Thank you.
Well, Your Excellencies, let me also stand on the already established protocol. I looked through the room and I thought, did I come to a wrong place? No, I did not. This place is filled with Nigerians, leaders of our country. So, and I came not because, very soon I will be a former governor, maybe ex-governor, maybe in 17 months. So it's not that my table is getting lighter. It is actually getting lighter. But I said I must be here Because opportunity may just present itself where they'll say, well, Sheyi, maybe you can say one or two things. Now I'm here. And they've actually asked me to say one or two things. Let me congratulate my elder brother on putting together your own account of some moments that are really critical in the history of Nigeria. A lot of us were not even prepared for that. So to be able to go out there, put pen to paper, and then have at least something to criticize. I saw Segun Adeniyi. I like the criticism, but I would like to encourage our leaders also, please enrich our history by documenting how you've seen things, from your own perspective. So I'll say congratulations to you, Chief Lai Mohammed. And from Segun Adeniyi's criticism, which is the conductor now getting on the driver's seat. There's a change of mentality, and I'd like to see that also. Don't take it that Segun Adeniyi just mentioned that. Two things that I would like to just bring out briefly. One is the fact that I'm sure Dr. Agboola Gambari will bear me witness. He invited me, to come and meet President Buhari. I only went to Aso Rock maybe 3 times during President Buhari's second tenure. One of such times, he invited me to come and brief him on the crisis in Oyo State regarding clashes between the Yorubas and the Hausa Fulani, elders, farmers, all of that. And then when I got in, I told the president that, well, you may not have sat with me at close quarters like this since you became president, but we were actually together the first time I contested in 2007. I was the senatorial candidate for AMPP in Oyo South Senatorial. Governor Ajimobi was the governorship candidate, and President Buhari was the presidential candidate for AMPP 2007. The 3 of us visited Alafi, and he prayed for us and said, you will win, but we lost. The 3 of us lost. Then 4 years later, 2011, Governor Ajimobi won under ACN. He became governor of Oyo State. 4 years later, 2015, President Buhari won. He became president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. 4 years later, I won. I became governor. So what it means is, it is only God that can determine when and how the trajectory of all of us. And why am I saying this? My experience being in government for going to 7 years now. I'll be 58 in maybe 10 days. No, maybe 8 days. I'll be 58. And I've only been in public office for 6 to 7 years of my entire life. My experience is that Nigerians, ordinary Nigerians, they already have a consensus that they want to be Nigerians. But the elites, we the elites, were the ones dividing the country because we have ambition. Oh, he's a Muslim, he's Christian, he's Hausa Fulani, no, he's Yoruba, no, he's South. So I came here to say, well, this book, because I know the author, he is a Nigerian that will attract all sort of people across the divide. And that's why I'm here. I'm not APC, and I'm not about porting to APC either. So because we have here Nigerians from across the divide, I believe we need elite consensus, just like Professor Afolabi mentioned. And we have, myself and Professor Afolabi, we always arguing. Every time we meet, it's arguments. So I don't want to start that here today. We need elite consensus on how to move forward. But I'll leave you with just one thing to ponder. He said here that Nigeria was negotiated, Nigeria's independence was negotiated under a certain condition. Of course, federalism was settled in that negotiation. Multi-party democracy was settled in that negotiation. And Prof also said civil war came and we went towards a unitary arrangement. Yes, I've had the opportunity to discuss with some of our leaders that were players in that period. And they said, well, the only problem they were faced with as of that time was they went through a civil war. They were going to unite Nigeria. That is the only problem. So federalism, all of those things negotiated, they became secondary. Their major task was to unite Nigeria. But is it the same problem that we're faced with today? The answer is no. So we must identify the problems that we are faced with today and design something that will allow us tackle that problem. And my own magic bullet is, Prof mentioned it, design an arrangement where there will be no winner take all politically in Nigeria, and I think it will be better for us. So once again, congratulations on this book. I will buy some, but I won't announce how much I'm going to pay. I'm a public servant now. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Governor. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we'll go through this as quickly as we can, and we would put a time limit of 2 minutes on all the speakers. May I, at this point, invite the Right Honorable Abdurrahim Tunji Olawi, Chairman, House Committee on North Central Development Commission, who will deliver a quick message, quick remarks on behalf of the Speaker of the House of Representatives. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Your Excellencies. Permit me to stand on the already established protocol. My name is Rahim Tunjolawi. I'm here today in two capacities. One, as the representative of the Right Honorable Speaker, Tajuddin Abbas, PhD. At the same time, I'm the Honorable Member representing Alhaji Lai Mohammed at the House of Reps. It's a privilege. It's my third time in the House, giving a very good representation to my leader. Thank you very much. The Speaker is unavoidably absent here today because the other national assignments, and he asked me to stand in for him and represent him in all aspects of the program, including when donation is being made. Though I have his word, like His Excellency Engineer Makinde said, as a civil servant, the Speaker will not definitely announce his donation or how much he's buying the books, but he asked me to donate handsomely and to give Alhaji Lai Mohammed his word that this book is a must read for every one of us, because the information embedded in this book is coming from somebody who saw it all, a participant, somebody who is speaking from an angle where most of us don't have the opportunity or privilege. So once again, on behalf of my Speaker, Right Honorable Tajudeen Abbas, I pass this message to all of you. Thank you for giving us this support in honor of our brother, our father, our political leader, Alhaji Lai Mohammed. Once again, thank you very much. God bless you all.
Thank you very much, and Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we will take a number of quick remarks, and from now on, it won't be in any particular order, but let me, at this point, crave your indulgence to ask one who has played an extremely important role in Nigeria. First, in the era when the military held sway, it was generally agreed that he was one of the best who, although presided at the time the military were in power, still had a lot which he did for a state he happened to be in charge of. Fast forward, these days, he has held sway over an institution that is in the forefront of cleaning up a lot of the challenges we do have in terms of sanitizing the space and ridding Nigeria of those things that give Nigeria as a nation a bad name. The fight against trafficking in drugs. Your Excellencies, let me invite at this point the chairman of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Brigadier General Mohammed Marwa, to make his quick remarks at this point. Let's appreciate him as he comes in. Thank you.
The chairman of this occasion, a highly revered Baba Bisa Akonde, CFR, the Buhari family, please allow me to stand on existing protocols. It is a profound honor and privilege for me to stand before this esteemed audience today as a first-hand witness of the dedication and passion that characterize the administration chronicled in the book that we are here to launch. We are gathered here today to celebrate the public presentation of a meticulously compiled work by my dear friend and brother Alhaji Lai Mohammed, former Minister of Information and Culture. This book launch is particularly poignant and memorable as it coincides with the first posthumous birthday of our former leader, President Muhammad Buhari. It is an auspicious day that reminds us of the profound legacy and steadfast leadership of a man who devoted his life to the service of our nation. A highly principled man of integrity, who loved the masses and the masses loved him back. Alhaji Lai Mohammed's work is in essence a vital part of preserving that legacy by ensuring that the critical, often complex moments of that era are accurately recorded and understood for posterity. The Buhari administration navigated some of the most challenging socio-economic and security headwinds in Nigeria's recent history. Throughout those trying times, the role of effective communication was paramount. Alhaji Lai Mohammed was the man at the helm, the chief interpreter, the unwavering voice of the government. He operated in a dynamic and often polarized media landscape. This book, I'm confident, will offer an indispensable insider's view into the strategic thinking, the intricate planning, and the sheer tenacity required to manage narratives that defined an entire era of governance, capturing the soundbites that shaped public opinion and the headlines that reflected our national journey. For those of us in the security and anti-narcotic sector, including the NDLEA, we understand the critical role media plays in amplifying our efforts, whether in disseminating prevention campaigns or reporting on our operational successes against drug cartels and barons. A functional relationship with the Ministry of Information under Lai Mohammed's leadership was instrumental in ensuring that our message of a war against drug abuse resonated well across the nation. Headlines and Soundbites is not just a memoir. It is a reference text for students of political communication, a guide for future spokespersons, and a treasured archive for historians. It is an account that seeks to educate, clarify, and inspire robust civil discourse. On behalf of the NDL and my family, I heartily congratulate Alhaji Lai Mohammed on this stellar achievement, and may this book find its way into the hands of every Nigerian who seeks a deeper, truer understanding of the Buhari years. And before I take my seat, in my opinion, one of the greatest legacies and miracles of the Buhari administration was the handling of the COVID pandemic. Millions around the technologically advanced world perished during this campaign, and everyone expected Nigerians to be falling down on the streets like flies, and that didn't happen. I thought I saw Boss Mustafa here. Excellent job. You chaired that committee. That was ably and well managed, and we are grateful to the Almighty God that under the leadership of President Buhari, the pandemic failed to be successful in Nigeria. Thank you all. God bless.
Thank you so very much, sir. Thank you, Chairman NDLEA, General Buba Marwa. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I have quite a number of remarks. As I said to you earlier on, this from this point is not in any particular order, and a few names have just come in here. Let me at this point invite, for the purpose of making a very brief remark, the Right Honorable Al-Hassan Adu Dogua Sadamandang Hausa, the Chairman of the Northern Regional Caucus of the House of Representatives. I believe he's still here with us. Oh, let's put our hands together for Honorable Al-Hassan Adu Dogua, who will make a brief remarks for 2 minutes. Thank you very much. Thank you.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وصلى الله على نبي الكريم. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would like to, as others did, crave the indulgence of the conveners of this very important occasion to respectfully stand on the established protocol. But that notwithstanding, I think I'm under obligation to recognize the presence of His Highness, the Emir of Argungu, Alhaji Mohammed Ismail Emera, who is here present. I do that especially because I am respectively a traditional title holder under his kingdom as the Dalatun Kangiwa in Kebbi State. I pay my respect, Your Highness. I also extend my special recognition to Pa Lai Balogun, Pa Baba Akande, who is also here, our leader, and remains our leader forever as far as Nigerian political architecture is concerned. I pay my respect for Akande. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would like to be as brief as possible because I'm here perhaps in two respective capacities. One, I'm here for and on behalf of the Northern Regional Caucus of the members of the House of Representatives in the 10th House of Representatives, led ably by our able Speaker, Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas Ian Zazo, GCON. I'm here on behalf of my members, the members of the 19 northern states that are representing our people across party affiliations in the Federal House of Representatives today. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I therefore want to, on behalf of my respected colleagues, felicitate with the convener and of course the author of this very important document, our leader also, Ba Lai Balogun, former Minister of Information. Sorry, Fa Lai Muhammad. Lai Muhammad, sorry, with due. Fa Lai Muhammad, who is the immediate past Minister of Information, Federal Republic of Nigeria. We congratulate you for coming up with this professional document as your contribution in the space of communication and media business in Nigeria. I am particularly concerned about the document because I am also one of you in the fourth estate of the RIM in the media business and media management in Nigeria. I was a student of mass communications in the famous Bayero University, Kano, where I graduated with a first-class degree in mass communications. I have not had the opportunity to practice extensively in the system because immediately after my National Youth Service Corps in Borno Radio Television Corporation, when I came back home, Dogwa in Kano State, I got elected to the Federal House of Representatives in 1990, straight to the House of Representatives. And since then, by His grace, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I have remained within the space of Nigeria's legislature, doing my little best to contribute to the political development of this country and even beyond. I would like to say that I identify with Pa Lai Muhammad for this very important documentation, which I believe will remain very resourceful, not only to the media people, but to Nigerian people by extension. The title being Headlines and Soundbites is something probably that we may have professional definitions or professional perception about, but I believe the larger society also, when they get through this document, they will come to understand the professional semantics of the headlines given to this book as headlines and sound bites. Distinguished Lai Mohammed, I congratulate you for coming up with this document, and I believe it will remain a very important document for reference and studies within the media cycle in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And secondly, I would like to also say that I am here by extension as one member of the team of the delegation from Daura Emirate to represent Daura Emirate in this important occasion. There are a few other title holders that are here with me to represent Daura Kingdom in this very important occasion for and on behalf of the Emir of Daura, Alhaji Umar Farooq Umar, the Emir of Daura. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I therefore want to say at this moment that by extension, that beyond the launch of the book, I want to believe that this important occasion has created a conspicuous opportunity for those of us who identify and still identify with the Buhari political family. I stand here as a proud politician and a proud leader from the northern part of this country, and very proud to be identified directly or indirectly to this great political family. I remain very determined to continue to contribute my quota to the political and economic development of this country in manner which our iconic and legendary leader Muhammad Buhari had started, and will continue from where he stopped. One very important thing that I have to put across here today, that today I'm a proud member of the APC under the leadership of Senator Bola Ahmed Tinubu as President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, because I can clearly remember that, to the best of my knowledge, our leader, the iconic and legendary former President Muhammad Buhari, died primarily as a Muslim, and he died without denouncing the membership of the APC. For those of us in the North, will continue to hold this mantle of this mantra of leadership, and we will continue to identify with the APC and the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, because our leader died as a proud member of the APC, the ruling APC. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would like to therefore say at this moment that for all those of us who are still within the corridor of powers, especially those of us within the space of the legislative arm of government, that we will continue to do our very best to identify with the expectations and yearnings of our people, to continue to operate as the small Buharis that are still living within the space of authority, whether in the legislature or executive arm of government, so that we will continue to keep the legacy of late Muhammad Buhari as someone who loved no one but the masses, the downtrodden masses and people of Nigeria. I want to say, without any fear of contradiction, that all of us down in the North have no other political leader or record today than His Excellency, the late President Muhammad Buhari. We will continue to identify with him. We will continue to identify with members of his biological family, and by extension, associates of Muhammad Buhari across the Federal Republic of Nigeria, to deliver in expectation of that the best and the very best will also be delivered to our people. Northern Nigeria will remain united in every respect. Our ulamas are part of us. Our traditional rulers are part of us, and we will continue to participate in the political activities of this country in a manner that our people will be conspicuous benefactors of the system of the government today. I want to say at this moment that we wish the government well, we wish Nigeria well, and on behalf of all of us here that are associates of Muhammad Buhari, we remain steadfast in the ruling APC, and will continue to tell the government and those in power the right thing to be done for the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, so that when the election time comes, we will not have uncomfortable questions to answer at the polls. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to say that on behalf of the federal lawmakers, of the caucus that I'm leading, I want to give a token contribution to buy a specified number of books, which I will communicate to the organizers in the sum of 10 million naira for and on behalf of the members of the House of Representatives from the northern part of Nigeria. This is my contribution, and I'm not sure if the representative of the speaker who was speaking here had made, a conspicuous statement. Please, can you approach me, please? Okay, we will buy 360 copies for members at which we decide. What can you suggest? Like 100,000 each by 360, how much? 100,000 by 360. Are you sure? Are you sure? Of course. About 80 pounds, yes. Then they do like 50,000, how much? 50,000. Okay, you are sure. Okay, sorry, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry I called Right Honorable Member not as the Speaker. I called him as a member of the House of Reps, which I am the leader. And I have discussed with him. We have agreed to, on behalf of the leadership of the House of Representatives and the Speaker, to buy 360 copies of this publication to each and every member of the House at the rate of 50,000 naira each. Thank you, and God bless Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Honorable Alhassan Ado Dogua, thank you very much. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the book that's been presented today is Headlines and Soundbites, Media Moments That Defined an Administration. I dare say for members of the fourth estate of the realm who are here in this hall, there are many soundbites and headlines that could be captured from Honorable Adodogua's message. Thank you very much. Your Excellency, may I at this point now invite, as we introduced him earlier, the one who conferred a title on the author of this book as Kaka King Kebi. Your Excellencies, may I at this point respectfully invite His Royal Highness, the Emir of Argungu, Alhaji Samail Amira, CON, to now give a brief message, and I believe on behalf of the Royal Father of the Day, His Eminence, the Sultan of Sokoto. Please let's applaud His Royal Highness as he comes to the microphone. Thank you very much.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. As mentioned by the MC, I have a very short but I think very apt letter of goodwill from His Eminence the Sultan of Sokoto to the writer of this book that we are gathered to launch. On his behalf, I recognize all leaders and followers present in this hall, Excellencies, Your Highnesses, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. And I read, to Alhaji Lai Mohammed, former Minister of Information and Culture, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Your Excellency, warmest congratulations on the publication, on the public presentation of your book, Headlines and Soundbites, Media Moments That Defined an Administration. The launch is profoundly significant, held on the first posthumous birthday of President Muhammad Buhari, GCFR. It is a most fitting tribute, honoring his legacy of integrity, discipline, and devoted service by documenting the very era he shaped. Your work provides an invaluable written chronicle, ensuring Nigerians and future generations have a definitive record of the policies, narratives, and pivotal moments of that transformative administration. We also commend and thank you for your distinguished service to your nation. Your tenure was marked by a fearless defense of Nigeria's sovereignty against negative narratives and a passionate global promotion of our rich and diverse culture. By dedicating this scholarly work to such a critical period, you have performed yet another great service to the nation. This book is a vital contribution to our historical archives and public understanding. Congratulations once again on this stellar achievement. With my highest esteem, His Eminence, the Sultan of Sokoto, Mohammed Sada Bakar. And on a personal note, I also want to congratulate you and Hajia on behalf of the entire people of Argungu Emirate, to thank you most sincerely for the time and energy you spent promoting our historical cultural event and ensuring that it become one or probably the first cultural festival to be registered by UNESCO as an intangible festival for humanity in West Africa. For that, we thank you. And on behalf of all past Ministers of Culture and Information of the Federal Republic, we conferred the title of Kakaki upon you to say thank you, and thanks to all past commissioners of our Ministers of Information and Culture that contributed to the rise of Argungu International Fishing Festival to that great height. We thank you for inviting us. We wish you and your family good health and Allah's guidance as you age beautifully. Alhamdulillah. Alisaka dalheri kal jagora. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you so very much, Your Royal Highness. Ladies and gentlemen, let's acknowledge with a royal applause for His Royal Highness. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Just a couple of more speakers, just two more, and then we'll get to the proper business of the presentation and the launching. And, well, I guess our next speaker, it would not be a surprise. The next speaker at this book presentation, and very good measure too. And so may I at this point invite the current Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris, to deliver brief remarks on the occasion of this presentation of this book by his predecessor in office. Let's put our hands together for Minister Mohammed Idris. Thank you.
The chairman of the occasion, our revered Baba Bisia Konde, our royal father, my colleagues, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I actually told Alhaji Lai Mohammed that there is no need for me to say anything, but he insisted that I have to say something, and I'm here. Let me begin with a confession. When I was nominated as a Minister of the Federal Republic, some of my friends came to me and said, I hope they are not going to give you Lai Mohammed's job. I said, well, I'm Minister nominee of the Federal Republic, so whatever assignment I'm given, I will do it. And somehow, I became Alhaji Lai Mohammed's successor. His shoes are very, very big to fill by anyone for a number of reasons. Number one, he has been in public service for a very long time. He was an opposition spokesperson for over 10 years. And then he is also the longest serving Minister of Information in this country. I've been on the role for only 2 years plus now. So you can see how how difficult it is. But I try to look at what Lai Mohammed has done while he was in office. And I think that he's one of the most criticized members of that cabinet. It's a very difficult role. I've been discussing with a number of my colleagues who happen to be either spokesperson or ministers or speaking on behalf of government. It's a very tough one. Navigating through some thorny issues require really some skill. I don't have the skill of Alhaji Lai Mohammed. So what I try to do is to avoid some of those pitfalls to the extent that, a few months after my appointment, some people said that Alhaji Lai Mohammed, because no matter what you say about Lai Mohammed, he was always there. And, whatever it is, you see, say something. And some people said, this man is not talking like Lai Mohammed. I think Lai Mohammed has gone with the microphone. He has gone away with the microphone. And I think he actually did go with the microphone, in a sense. But, learning from him, when my first day on the job, I told Nigerians that, consistent with my belief and my profession as a communicator, a professional communicator, I said I'm going to say it as it is. Of course, you embellish it here and there, but you still say it the way it is. And then one young man, after I left there, I saw one post. He said, Lai Mohammed Pro Max. Meaning we are now in for a bigger Lai Mohammed. Whatever it is, Lai Mohammed is consistent in what he says. I watched his interview on the NTA a few days ago, and I was just telling myself, I was smiling in my room alone, and I said, Alhaji Lai will always remain Alhaji Lai in and out of office. But whatever you say about him, I think he has contributed to the leadership of this country. He has contributed to the growth and development of Nigeria, because wherever you go and throughout the history of any organized society, the power to change the course of mankind has always been vested in leaders. He has played his role, and he is here today. I've learned a few things. And I know that you know that I've learned a few things from Alhaji Lai Mohammed, and I will continue to do it in the best way I can. Some of those things that some people accuse me of not doing, the way Alhaji Lai Mohammed is doing, I say, well, you have not really, thought it through. I'm still doing those things, but in a way that is different from Alhaji Lai Mohammed. And thank you for what you have done. And let me say it here again, for the second time, that there are two things that Alhaji Lai Mohammed has done that people have not really documented. The first one is that it was during the tenure of Alhaji Lai Mohammed that the International Press Institute came to Nigeria for the first time ever. He brought all the leaders, all the editors of the world to Nigeria together with the membership of the International Press Institute. He brought them to Nigeria for the first time. I think people should note that. Second, Alhaji Lai Mohammed's tenure also witnessed the beginning of the bid to host what is called the UNESCO Category 2 Media and Information Literacy. It was during Lai Mohammed that, it was Lai Mohammed that started it. But of course, I finished the job only about 2 months ago. Thank you, sir, for what you have done. And I'm happy to see you. All those bashings has not really changed you. And I know you'll continue to be Alhaji Lai Mohammed. Thank you for the service you have offered. For the criticism, it will always be there. He has contributed to a body of knowledge. If you feel differently from what Alhaji Mohammed, just contribute yours as well, and then, we'll continue from there. Thank you for what you have done, and thank you for the opportunity to say one or two things here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister of Information and National Orientation, Mohammed Idris. Thank you so very much. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, at this point in time, there will be at this point in time, let us just take one more remark, and this is significant in the presentation of this book. You already heard that it was chosen to present this book on the posthumous birthday of the late President Muhammad Buhari. And of course, the book itself chronicles the moments that defined the Buhari administration under which Alhaji Lai Mohammed served as Minister of Information and Culture. And therefore, at this point, the mother of the day, the former First Lady, is being represented here by members of her family, and to speak on her behalf, let me at this point invite Halima Buhari, who will deliver a message on behalf of the former First Lady, who is the mother of the day at this book presentation. Let's put our hands together as we invite Halima Buhari to come on stage. Thank you.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, our royal fathers, the author Alhaji Lai Mohammed, ladies and gentlemen, permit me to stand on existing protocol. On behalf of the family of the late President Muhammad Buhari, I want to begin by expressing our sincere appreciation to everyone gathered here today for the public presentation of this book, Headlines to Soundbites, Media Moments that Defined an Administration, written by Alhaji Lai Mohammed. For our family, this is an opportunity to look back at a demanding and often turbulent period in our nation's life, seen through the lens of one of the people who served with my father in the public arena. Alhaji Lai Mohammed served as Minister of Information and Culture for 8 years, and in that role, he became, in many ways, the public voice of the administration. Today, we acknowledge and appreciate his service to our country and his loyalty to the office he served. This book focuses on headlines and soundbites, the language of the media age. Those headlines, those short clips and statements often became the way many Nigerians experienced the Buhari administration. They shaped perceptions, framed debates, and sometimes reduced complex realities to a few words that could fit on a screen or in a tweet. But behind every headline, there were long meetings, tough choices, disagreements, doubts, and the quiet weight of responsibility. Behind every soundbite, there was a human being, sometimes tired, sometimes determined, sometimes frustrated, but always painfully aware that his decisions impacted millions of lives. That human being was our father, our husband, our grandfather. As his daughter,